not need protein. You need to make it. You need to manufacture it. And eating protein is not the most effective way of making protein. Just like eating your hair is not going to make you grow more hair.
The health of your erectile functions is directly correlated to your cardiovascular function.
100%.
Joining us today are Miguel Bertonati, a leading biohacker and clinic director at the Medical Health Institute, known for personalized hormone therapy.
And Carlos Bertonati, co-founder and head manager dedicated to innovative functional medicine. Stay tuned for an insightful discussion.
93% of Americans are suffering from some kind of metabolic dysfunction.
What kind of amino acids are you doing? You doing like
We're talking
essential amino acids.
These
Not
nasty-
BCAAs. Not BCAAs.
Did you know about the French study? 2,500 people when the C hit over 50 years of age. They were doing a study on cancer patients. None of them got sick. None of them.
Wow.
And they were all taking methylene blue.
Let's go to another system of the body, immune system.
I would say, like, we get this a lot. Like, oh yeah, I tore my bicep like 15 years ago. I want to use VPC and thymosin beta 4.
A little too late.
It's like, dude, no.
Cognitive health, brain health. What peptides do we got?
Well, I have to caveat with one thing.
Because we're going there. And I know methylene blue, intravenous methylene blue. So,
But did you know about the French study? 2,500 people when the C hit over 50 years of age. Cancer study.
Yeah.
They were doing a study on cancer patients. When the C hit, none of them got sick. None of them.
Wow.
And they were all taking methylene blue.
so all right, because we're talking about the immune system, right? We're talking about peptides, supplements for the immune system. Now let's go ahead and switch gears, which this is related to the immune system. Peptides, supplements for mitochondrial health.
Ooh.
Because it's connected, right? It's
Yeah,
connected to the immune
yeah.
system.
Well, I mean, it's
So-
one of the hallmarks of aging.
And then you brought up methylene blue, which obviously that's hits the mitochondria.
Well, I mean, it fits perfect into this one because so lately, you're familiar with. Oh, you just had him not too long ago, Ryan Smith.
Yeah,
right.
of course.
He's a genius with peptides. Last time we saw him at the Biohack Expo that we were speaking, we always kick it, and I'm like, "Yo, what's up, bro?" We were talking, and he's like, "Dude," I'm like, "If you had to pick one peptide, this is geek talk, right? We were talking. If you had to pick one peptide, which one you pick?" He's like, "Dude, SS31."
All the way.
I'm like, all the way. I'm like, well, why? And then he started explaining, and then we got into it, and then so basically SS31. The main benefit of that peptide is that it repairs the cardiolipin. So your cells have a cellular membrane, right, that is made out of fat. The cardiolipin is what protects the mitochondria. So think of the cardiolipin as your shirt.
Right.
Every time you wear your shirt, it loses elasticity, and if it has a logo, it starts to degrade. What this peptide does, it keeps the shirt brand new. So it doesn't matter how many. Remember that you have to reproduce, just like amino acids. You have to produce them. You have to intake them every day, and you have to produce mitochondria.
Right.
So when you're repairing the cardiolipin, you have less electron leakage. Electrons are basically the currency we need that turns into ATP. So as we get older, for every ATP unit that we produce, which is our gasoline, we produce oxidative free radicals. That's our exhaust. So the older we get, that cardiolipin becomes damaged. So we produce more exhaust, less efficiency, less energy output.
Right.
And therefore, skin ages, organs age, we age in general. We're as old as our mitochondria. These things have been around before we were around. So if I can repair that cardiolipin constantly and keep it brand new, my shirt never ages.
Basically keeps your Nikes fresh. every
All the time. Yeah, like those shoes, you can imagine they're always kept like that. So you keep your mitochondria basically the integrity of a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And then methylene blue, since it acts as a electron donor or supports in the electron transport chain, it literally cleans out the mitochondria, while the SS31 repairs it, so you have more energy output, less exhaust, more efficiency, almost like running hybrid. And when you add the methylene blue, you're constantly cleaning out the mitochondria, and you have really healthy mitochondria. So I would tell you, hands down for energy, SS31 is by far my favorite peptide.
And then, I mean, what you would add there, I mean, less for a protective mechanism, more for performance and more metabolic health, like MATC.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you can...
Oh, yeah.
It starts getting really expensive when you start talking about this, right? MATC, they call it exercise in a bottle.
Yeah.
Right? That's what basically it is, because it induces your body to burn massive amount of fat. and it activates, it jacks up the mitochondria, revs up so you can produce energy like if you're working out but without working out.
Yeah, and,
so
and your endurance will like it skyrocket for at least like a good 30. So if you have like a run or something that you got to do,
that's
like you have like a high endurance run that you inject. I mean, you inject a whole bottle of this stuff and bam, for 30 to 40 minutes, your go time.
So basically, that would be the pre-workout you would take. Talk about pre-workouts; they're all garbage. Basically, this is the real pre-workout. You take this right before working out, or while you're working out, because it has such a short half-life. We'll warm up, and then I'll go to the bathroom inject, and you're freaking on
It's
fire.
like junkie stuff, you know?
Yeah, no, this is next level stuff, right?
No, I hear you. All right, so we got mitochondria, and then obviously certain supplements, probably like CoQ10 and whatnot, that help up with that.
I mean, those are baseline, right? Like the supplements are baseline.
You have urolithin A now, which feeds the mitochondria. There's many. Again, we're not talking about supplements right now, but everything you're speaking about, peptides, they all go in combination with specific key elements like supplements that are feeding the information from that peptide.
Cool. So we talked about the immune system, right?
Mitochondria
now let's
and brain.
Let's go into, if we're talking about immune system, let's go into regenerative peptides.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of regenerative peptides do
I
we
mean,
have?
you know, we'll say that the ones that are really like famous out there, I mean, that's what they call the Wolverine stack that most people know about, right? I kind of hate it when people say it like that, but you know, you got things like BPC, thymosin beta 4, which is now, you know, TB500, right?
Which is just a synthetic form compound.
They changed the name because they needed to change the molecule because the FDA got all funny about, you know, these compounds. And then you have like things like GHK, right? So, you know, BPC from a very like layman's terminology, it's responsible for reducing massive amounts of inflammation, right? So if you have an injury and you have a lot of inflammation, BPC, not only does it act on the gut and it also like stimulates growth hormone channels, but it reduces massive inflammation, right? So that you can get that down and heals, like speeds up the healing process and the repair mechanism. And then combined with TB4, maybe he'll explain it different, combined with TB4, which is another part of the thymus, right? So it stimulates another part of the thymus gland.
It still has some of the effects like thymosin alpha 1, just not as strong.
Right.
As
so
the
basically,
immune
like
part.
if I have a cut, right, like my cells need to prioritize the cut. They can be like, okay, I need to send more workers there to the cut because this is compromised, right? I need to glue it back together. So what remember instructions, right? So TB4 says, hey, we need to recruit more agents faster, better to that area, right? So so that's why the BPC and TB4 combination works so well when you have a fresh injury, right? Because BPC will attack the inflammation, you know, speed up the healing process, but the TB4 will send the recruit cells to the area to start the work in progress. Right. So that combination.
So I like to say BPC is the ice pack from the inside out.
Yeah.
Any injury, you want the inflammatory process at first, but then you want to reduce the inflammatory response so you can start recovering. It also is very well documented too.
Let's say that properly. So like if you're going to have a surgery, we always tell you get the surgery and then start the BPC 3 days later, 48 to 72 hours later, because you want the inflammation initially. That's the body's natural response to an injury. It needs to, you know, create inflammation to protect you. So you want that inflammatory response. Kind of like when you work out, you want the inflammation. You don't want to take BPC and go work out, right? You, like it's just, you know, or you don't want to go ice bucket and then go work out because you want the inflammatory.
Cold plunge.
Yeah, you want the ice bucket. You want the inflammatory response. So you wait for the inflammation for 2 days and then boom, you attack inflammation. Right. So I'm sorry to cut you off.
That's fine. That's a good point though. So BPC is documented to activate growth hormone receptors within the ligaments and tendons. So especially if you had a ligament or tendon damage. Oh, and it also enhances your muscle satellite cells, which is what attracts stem cells to actually recruit and repair that area. Right. So you reduce the inflammatory response, you enhance these growth hormone receptors so they're more, the affinity to growth hormone and stem cells is much greater. So repair, especially if it's a ligament, tendon, or muscle tear, it's much faster. The thymosin beta 4 causes cellular migration, so more cells migrate to that area to repair. That's why there's anecdotal evidence. It would take millions of dollars, if not billions, to get evidence of this, but we know because of we're part of a forum, a real doctor forum, where we see
people in the trenches, doctors
thousands, I have hundreds of thousands of patients of anecdotal evidence that it shows that if you inject at the injury site, you have more receptors that are closer, so the medication binds, the affinity is much greater and binds to those receptors within that injured site much faster, right? So you can take oral BPC. It's one of the only ones you can take orally because it's made by the gastric juices. You can take it orally and inject it around the injured site. Then the GHK copper peptide is an antifibrotic agent. So when you injure yourself, antifibrotic means that they'll basically go back to its natural state. If not, you have what a scar is, which is fibrotic. It's a fiber that didn't properly bind together the way it's supposed to. So it helps for collagen synthesis, hyaluronic acid, all the matrix that make the components of skin, but it helps so those agents, those fibers can realign themselves healthy. And then in addition to that, if you wanted to, you can add something like IGF-1 or growth hormone secretagogue, which we can get in later, because remember with the BPC, how it enhances those growth receptors. So now you jack up your IGF-1, your growth hormone, that growth hormone is going to go and repair that area much better. Yeah. And the last thing is that the thymosin beta-4, the first gene to get activated when we're injured is thymosin beta-4. It's actually a gene. So when you inject this stuff, you're activating more of that gene pathway to go and regulate that injury.
Yeah. And a couple of caveats for people watching, because, we get this a lot. Like, oh, yeah, I tore my bicep like 15 years ago. I want to use BPC and thymosin beta-4.
A little too late.
It's like, dude, no. Like sometimes surgery is what you need, right? Yeah. So sometimes, but I want to be very careful because, these things are being like promoted out there like the Wolverine pack, and like heal like a Wolverine. And yeah, sure, like all this stuff works. But again, if you have the baseline first, you're doing all the proper things.
You layer them.
Right? You layer it. And also it depends on the timing, right? Like if you have an injury that's very old, thymosin beta-4 is probably not going to do anything. Right? Now, could you get a lot of mobility back by, reducing inflammation with BPC? Yeah, but I just want to be careful that people understand that there's some injuries that are way past the extent of what BPC and TB4 and these Wolverine stacks can actually do. Right? So you got to be very careful, and that's why we're very ethical and like, look, let me know what the injury is, right? Like if you have a fresh one, but you need surgery, I almost don't want you to use the BPC and stuff because then your body's going to start healing fast, but wrong. Right. So sometimes, there is a time and place for traditional medicine. Right. So, but look, and again, everyone is super different. And this is the cool thing that, my brother and I doing this together, we're almost genetically identical. Okay. Where we've done massive genetic tests and, people are like, dude, you're like a step away from being, twins. But obviously we look different. We have different personalities, all of that stuff. There's minor differences. Right. And so he'll take BPC, I'll take BPC, and we'll respond totally different, right? Under the same dose, right? So that's one thing to consider. And then also, like, you just have to be aware, like, again, on the timing and the layering of what you're doing, right? And making sure that the injury is something that is going to be effective in this treatment, because if not, you're just being lied to.
Right. So regenerative peptides. And a lot of issues that people have with regenerative, when they need the regenerative therapies, a lot of the times it comes from being obese, right? Yeah. So that takes us to the peptides to lose weight. What do we got?
The GLPs.
Let me just, can I just kind of caveat this? And by the way, sorry, let me just, because I have back issues, right? We have herniated backs. I've taken gallons of BPC. Does it help my herniated back? No. But you know what? We had the guy that we ski with, he was a patient, now he's a friend. He came to us in a walker. He came to Miguel in a walker. Miguel put him on a protocol, recovery, and BPC has been life transformative to him, where he was told he would never walk, and now he's jumping out of helicopters with us. Same thing with older guys with arthritic conditions. I mean, when they run out of BPC, they get emotional, right? So it varies from person to person, so I just wanted to caveat that. Now, in terms of the weight loss, let me just say this. Look, there's a ton of doctors out there, very famous doctors, okay, who are demonizing this medication, and the basis of it is you do this medication, 60% of the weight loss is going to be muscle loss and muscle mass, which is true, right? Yeah. Another caveat there. Now, if you're using this as a magic bullet, as a silver bullet, and you're using this as a standalone medication, please beware, this will have catastrophic effects, right? Now, if you know how to use these properly, because we've put people look, we don't condone bodybuilding, but there's guys that have wanted to do it, and we've helped them, and we have used these GLPs to make people win fitness contests. So this whole concept that you're going to lose muscle is just because you don't know how to use them.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I'll call him out. Peter Attias is talking some bull
crap.
BS. I'll challenge him any day. Like, look at me. I've been on tirzepatide. I've been on GLPs for over 2 years. Do I look like I'm losing any muscle? And I'm consistent at where I'm at.
And by the way,
that is
we'll be on tirzepatide jumping out of helicopters.
Yeah.
So
but I think
completely baloney.
The part that you hit on that's very important is you have to do it right.
You have to do it
right.
Yes.
Take the right supplements. You have to eat the right amount of food.
Right.
You should get a body composition analysis to get a baseline of how much lean mass you have.
100%, dude. 100%. But also, like, the other piece of it is, let me just say this: these are the, and I'll steal a quote from our Dr. Rudy. These are the most like transformative medication of our time. They're revolutionary medications. Why? Because, like, for example, when we discovered penicillin, what was killing us? Infections, right? Today, what's killing us? 93% of Americans are suffering from some kind of metabolic dysfunction, right? So these are medications that will help people that are suffering from these food addictions, right? And these problems get it straight. Now, the other thing that people need to really understand is how this medication actually works, like the mechanism of action. I always tell people this is not magic fairy dust that you're going to sprinkle on yourself and all of a sudden you're going to have a transfiguration. Like, you need to understand how this works, because if you don't, then you're going to switch one addiction for another addiction, right? And then you're just going to be addicted to this medication. So I'm not going to switch the addictions. I'm going to teach you how this works, and I'm going to use this medication as a momentum tool to repair and get rid of the underlying problem that caused you to get on this medication in the first place.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a portion that I wanted to say, but I mean, they're amazing, GLP. So now we've had, remember, these medications came out on the market, like the first sort of iterations of it started coming out in 2015, 2010, and then 2015 is when, semaglutide came out, right? Let's use GLP, right? So the first iteration was GLP, which GLP just kind of, basically in a layman's term, shuts down your appetite, slows down your gastric emptying, so you're less hungry. So you're intaking less calories. Right. But this is also problematic. This is why you see all these effects of why people are demonizing, because, you're taking somebody who's already nutrient deficient. You're already telling someone that, has all kinds of metabolic problems, is nutrient deficient, is
and now they're
toxic,
not eating at all.
And now they're not eating at all.
Right.
I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Right? You're going to be totally depleted. So if you're going to go on a GLP medication, you have to make sure, just like any peptide, you have to layer the foundation.
So, all right, we're going to reverse, right? We're going back to the beginning. This is good. This is where the foundation goes into play. Right?
Minerals.
Because if you're going online and buying these GLP-1s and only taking the GLP-1s, and now you're not even eating at all, now you don't even have any of those nutrients that your body needs to even function.
Correct. Yeah. And one big one, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Okay, one big one that I'll just say off the bat, like, because here's the other concept, right? Then you have the biohackers, which I think, buffoonery. Like, they'll say, you need to make sure that when you're on these GLPs, you need to be eating 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I weigh 185 pounds, man. 185 grams of protein is already super hard to get in. But how are you going to get that in when your appetite is completely shot and eating 20 grams of protein makes you nauseous?
Right.
How are you going to do that? Right? Well, then you go to what actually makes protein, which is amino acids. So, big disclaimer out there. If you're on these GLP medications and you're not using amino acids, that's the first sign that you don't know what you're doing. And your doctor doesn't know what he's doing. Right? So amino acids are super, super important when you're on these GLPs, because it gives your body the building blocks to make the protein. Like, for example, you ever seen people that fast long, they lose their hair? Why? Because your body doesn't have collagen proteins to make hair, right? So amino acids is what you give.
What
to
kind of
your
amino
body.
acids are you doing? You doing
We're
like
talking
essential?
essential
Essential amino acids.
BCAAs?
Not
Nah,
BCAAs.
no,
Not
that's
BCAAs.
garbage.
That's a
What about like the
That's
GAC
a different
lift?
discussion,
You
huh?
guys do the GAC lift?
Yeah, but that's that we use that. I use that. I call it T plus. I use it with my
that's an
testosterone.
injectable that's more for performance. I'm talking about so that's why they're called essential amino acids. Without them, you will die. And these are not things that your body can make. You have to give them from the outside in.
Right.
And so if you're able to give it the 8 essential ones in the proper content, form, quality, and format, your body is able to make all of these proteins that you need. And the great thing about them is you're taking them. This is how we're able to do these things fasted. I take my amino acids, and guess what? My body has all the proteins that it needs for that specific time period so that I don't deplete myself, right?
And we're talking about you need protein for everything, right? We ask people, what do you think you need protein? The first thing that comes to mind is what?
Muscle.
Muscle. So
like
you
1%.
need it for your digestive enzymes are protein based, right? Myosin and actin in your muscles are protein based. Elastin and collagen, which make the elasticity of the skin, are protein based. The
Keratin for your eyes.
the keratin and melanopsin cells, which is what regulates your circadian rhythm, are protein based. BDNF, synapses in your brain, which improve memory, learning,
Growth
and
hormone.
cognition, is protein based. Hemoglobin A1C. Hemoglobin in general, which is what gives oxygen to the red blood cell, is protein based. Your antibodies, protein based. The list goes on. And then you have growth hormone, insulin, melatonin, thyroid, insulin, all protein based. So we need essential amino acids to build and regenerate every physiological and biological system of our systems in order to make hormones, tissues, everything, right?
So, and you know the typical thing that we get into that I think I think this right here is the biggest miseducation and the biggest miss in the entire health and fitness industry is protein, right? Oh, you need to eat a lot of protein. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you need to eat a lot of your hair when you go to the barbershop to grow your hair? Do you need to eat your nails to grow nails? You don't, right? So what do you think? What makes you think that eating a chicken leg is going to make you muscle? It just doesn't work that way. You know, like this is
There's a whole science behind it.
All protein is genetically foreign to the body until it's broken down into individual components, which are amino acids, separates into the non-essential, essential, and they'll make muscle. And the BCAAs, we use a concept called irreducible complexity. If I give you a gun without a trigger key, you shoot your target. Or a boat without a propeller key, you go fishing. Or a piano without keys, you play me a song. If all the components of that puzzle are not put together simultaneously, that system will not work. So branch chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine, without the other 5 that are essential, it will not work. Histamine is the ninth quote unquote essential amino acid. It's debatable, whatever. We use it as well. But we follow Dr. David Minkoff, 43-time Ironman competitor, 8-time world champ qualifier, 77 years of age, still kicking ass. Yeah. And he wrote the book, The Search for the Perfect Protein. We follow the 8 essential amino acids, but we still put the 9th one just in case. And the point is that you need these essential amino acids, especially with GLP-1 to not break down muscle. I would actually, in addition to that, add that these are incredible band-aids that we're using, but they're not treating the root cause. The root cause is poor education on what food is. Food is code.
Big time.
And we have socialized food into an entertaining experience and pleasure base rather than a fundamental necessity for our health and indispensable to our well-being, because food is genetic information. It's code for our bodies. So when you can look at food from that perspective, your whole philosophy around living a healthy, vibrant life would shift. That's number 1. Number 2 is having a routine of exercise. If we were meant to move, we were either picking up things, getting hot, getting cold. We either had to chase it, make it, or go build it. Meaning we were always moving. People 95% of the time are sitting in front of a computer indoors without light, eating hyper-palatable foods that are astronomically high in calories, nutrient depleted, and designed to cause orgasms, activating the same reward centers just as much as cocaine did, right? That's not to mention the rest of the lifestyle, Netflix or social media. We're not moving. So we become a society that's overfed, hypermedicated, overstimulated, yet malnourished and dopamine depleted, and a spiritually bankrupt society. Let's start there, right? So once you got that in place and you got these nutrients that we're talking about, you can use these GOP long-term the way we do in microdoses. And when we mean microdose, we mean smaller amounts and longer periods. So instead of, for example, the half-life is 7 days, instead of injecting every 7 days, you're injecting every 10 to 14 days. Yeah. You're not injecting as often. You're reminding yourself that you have to do some of the work. But the biggest thing I would say that we found is that GLP-1s are GLP peptide hormone mimetics that are stimulating the body to produce GLP, which is a hormone that you release out of your intestine, the ileum, the third part of your intestine, to basically shut down hunger or make you feel satiated with small amounts of food. It's what regulates hunger, right? And these are microbes that feed that hormone to be produced. So when we take the peptide, we're actually masking a symptom. So we need to take something called Akkermansia municiphala. I can't say the other part of it, just Akkermansia, which is a form of bacteria that feeds the GLP-1. So therefore, you don't need as much GLP. Yeah. And you naturally help your body produce GLP because it's already inside of you. Remember, every peptide we're using, already inside of you. It's already inside of us. So what's missing that we're not feeding our body to naturally produce it? So we do believe in them. I do use them. It turns off the food noise. They're fantastic.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. So like, if I can interject, so remember, GLP, just like Cialis was never an ED medication. It was a pulmonary medication, right? Then they started noticing that the guys didn't want to return.
Well, it started with Viagra, right?
Yeah, they didn't want to return the medication, right? So actually, interesting case when the C happened, they woke up an elderly woman. They gave her a massive dose of Cialis and it brought her back.
Viagra. It was Viagra.
Was it Viagra?
Yeah, it was Viagra. It was Viagra.
Well, okay, so my point is, these medications, when they
Sildenafil, let's not use the brand name. Sildenafil.
They started making them for neurological effects, but it was a lot sexier to sell it for weight loss, right? So the thing that we love the most about the medication is not necessarily the weight loss, which is just a natural like outcome, right? It's what happens in the brain.
Right.
It's the sort of like dopamine uncoupling to food associations that we have in this country and people. And the biggest thing that I get from patients is, wow, I've learned that I don't need nearly as much food as I thought I once did. Yeah. That's the key thing. And then we go back to what Miguel was saying, where we go back to this sort of like ancestral living, which, you know, remember, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner would have been an offense. It would have been a preposterous idea to suggest to our ancestors who needed to walk for miles, who needed to hunt stuff. They didn't, you know, they weren't eating breakfast, planning for dinner. Right? They were thinking like, we might not eat for a couple of days, right? So, you know, that's the cool thing about these GLPs that are sort of like, if it's used by the right practitioner and educated in the right way, we can bring people back to this homeostasis where they can now regulate and not have this, because like you said, it turns off the food noise. You're no longer considering food. But one last thing that I want to kind of wrap up on.
And now it gets rid of addictions. People who have alcohol,
marijuana,
all that stuff.
They drastically release your.
The studies actually look wonderful.
And dude,
for longevity effects to reduce inflammation at the organ sites,
brain
for
health,
your brain. I mean, it's a phenomenal peptide.
Dude, I have cardiologists calling me like, please put my patients on GLPs, right? But one thing, where's my camera? One thing that I wanted to say about this protein stuff, you do not need protein. You need to make it. You need to manufacture it. Hundreds of thousands of proteins per day, every single day. And eating protein is not the most effective way of making protein. Just like eating your hair is not going to make you grow more hair. I just wanted to kind of say that.
So we got the weight loss down.
And then we just to close out with the weight loss. Right. Now, hopefully, because we have an IRB, we're officially a research-based medical practice. And under research purposes, under the FDA guidance, we get to use peptides that are not available to the public, like retatrutide. Or
retatrutide.
Retatrutide.
Yeah.
I like to say
retatrutide. It went GLP. Then
that's the one that works on 3 receptors.
Yeah,
it's a triple
the first
agonist.
It was GLP, then it became GLP-GIP, and now it's GLP-GIP glucagon.
And that rutratutide has incredible effects because it binds to the GIP receptor 8 times. The affinity is 8 times stronger. So it has 8 times the potent effect on lipolysis, which is the uncoupling of triglycerides, freeing them into your bloodstream for you to mobilize them and burn them.
Yeah.
And then the glucagon, when it goes up, it tells the body we're low on fuel, burn fat.
So it's basically the greatest fat burner ever created by man.
It's incredible. Wow. It's incredible.
It's incredible.
So that's the next thing that is, I believe, stage 2 or 3 phases of studies. But when that comes out, it's going to blow the roof out of the house. Man.
It's incredible.
People got to be ready for that.
And it's cool, right? Because a lot of people that have been on these GLPs and GIPs, they sort of plateau. And then, the cool thing, it's like kind of like you work on the evolution of the patient, right? Like you want to move them in steps. So there's people like they'll use the GLP and they'll beat the food addiction. They'll beat the noise in their head, and now they could do it without it. Like now it's like, yeah, I don't have a hunger problem, but I still have this little bit of fat that has been hard for me to do. So now you step it up to retatrutide, which is 50% less powerful on the GLP portion, which is the hunger suppression. But like Miguel said, 8 times more powerful on basically the fat burning effect.
Wow.
So that's how you start graduating on these things, right?
Amazing.